The two main groups involved in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict are the Palestinians and the Israeli people. Palestinians are mostly Muslim and Christian Arabs who make up roughly 49% of the population in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Israeli people are Jewish by religion and make up roughly 49% of the population as well. To date, the conflict has claimed over 100,000 lives, while injuring just under 100,000 more. This is a photo of the Haram al-Sharif, which serves as the holy epicenter for Palestinians, and in 2000 it was occupied by the Israeli army. Violence has continued to present day, and the conflicts have been caused by modern geographical and political factors while historically being fueled by the partitioning of land after World War II and fallout from British involvement in World War I. In 1946, the land belonged mainly to the Palestinians. However, after the UN partition plan and Israel settlements inside of Palestinian land, tension over the control of land arose. These settlements are labeled as intrusions by the Palestinian people and create more tension. This tension was recognized by the Israeli government, and as a result of the increased tension, they built the West Bank Wall. The wall is constructed mostly of concrete and electrified fence, as well as containing high-tech sensory systems in some areas. The wall was built by the Israeli government to keep out suicide bombers from Israel's cities, as well as protecting citizens from small arms fire from nearby highways. Palestinians' issue with the construction of the fence lies in its boundary. The proposed path of the wall lies farther east than the line created by the partitioning. Currently, the wall encompasses 55,000 Palestinian people, specifically the town of Kalkila. As well as encompassing people, the wall separates Palestinians from vital resources, such as the Western Aquifer system. The final reason geography is an issue is that both groups seek to occupy Jerusalem, and that began with the Zionists who sought a new holy place for the Jewish people. Israel acted upon this on September 27, 2000, when they occupied the Palestinian holy place, the Haram al-Sharif. The Palestinian people revolted against the Israeli army in violent revolts known as intifadas. This revolt contained a great deal of violence that is carried along through present day. Politics are a cause of the conflict because of the groups that have arisen on both sides. One example of this is Palestine's lack of a definitive government that the entire population responds to. The first group, the PLO, or the Palestinian Liberation Organization, is a group who seeks democracy in Palestine, is constructed of 8 branches, and acted as a formal government for the people. They called for a democratic Palestinian state that consisted of all the current Israeli land and denounced the idea of an Israeli Jewish state altogether. In 1976, they were recognized by the UN as the governing body for Palestinians, but due to increasing violence, they were deemed a banned group as they were seen as terrorists. Second to emerge, the Hamas. They're a nationalist group, but were labeled terrorists in 1993, and since then, their violence has escalated, giving the Hamas the tag of being terrorists. Finally, the Palestinian Authority, or PA, is a governed body for Palestine ran by Israel. It currently holds the most authority amongst Palestinian people, but was consumed by the Hamas in 2005. Since then, Israeli assassinations of PA leaders has caused those remaining to go into hiding and obscured the organization's power. Out of those 3 groups, in 2006, the Hamas was elected the leader for the Palestinian people in a democratic election. However, the election was highly disregarded because of corruption in the system. Even at the head of power, the Hamas failed to gain the following of all the Palestinian people. This is a problem because if they were to reach an agreement with Israel, seeing as if a decision was made with one group, it could potentially go unheard from the followers of the other 2 organizations. The final group, and a group from Israel, are Zionists who emerged in 1993 as a terrorist group. They have since spread violence through the use of IEDs, small arms attacks, suicide bombings, and missile attacks on Palestinian people, including citizens. Zionists emerged in 1880 while fleeing persecution in Europe and Russia. They came to Palestine to conquer Jerusalem as the Holy Land for Judaism. Historically, the partition after World War II encapsulated many Palestinian people in Israeli lands and caused tension between the 2 groups. The newly drawn UN borders encapsulated more than 450,000 Palestinians inside of Israeli lands. Palestinians were still entrapped in Israeli lands. The Israelis took over the 45% that was allotted to the Arabs in the UN partition. They now controlled about 78% of the 100%, which they were originally given 55%. Israel then declared themselves an independent state and went to instill the full force in their military on the now 750,000 Arabs encompassed in their newly found state. They exiled these 750,000 Palestinians, but some were unable to flee Israel. Palestinians, now in control of mere 22% of the land, which they were given double, sought independence and were undoubtedly fearful of the Israeli people. The final historical factor that caused the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is World War I and British involvement in the Middle East. In 1917, Earl Arthur Balfour promised Jewish Zionists a homeland in the Middle East if they were to help Britain win the war. However, once Britain acquired Jerusalem from the Turks, they began to divide it up into Arab states instead of giving it to the Jewish Zionists as promised. Jewish Zionists continued to immigrate into the Middle East because they thought they would have a home there, and the Arabs there began to revolt at the idea of a Jewish state. The revolting led to riots and violence from their part. It led to massacre and death, as well as displays of powers and defiance towards the idea of sharing their land with the Jewish radicals. The Jewish Zionists were eventually given a sliver of land along the West Bank, to which the Arabs protested even more. The riots were even more vicious and deadly. British involvement can be seen as a cause of the Palestinian-Israeli conflicts because they essentially placed the Arabs and the Israelis side by side in the same country, and they were both fighting for the same land. The issue, however, would not be solved until 1967 after World War II with the United Nations partition. The Palestinian-Israeli conflicts are a deadly and serious contest in the Middle East. Brought upon by land battles and disputes over religion, they have developed into a full-blown standoff that is anything but stagnant. Seeing as the U.S. has some level of involvement with Israel, this could be seen as a threat to the U.S. if the conflict was to spread outside of the Palestinian and Israeli borders. In order for any issues to be solved in the Middle East, I think first Palestine would need to establish a government so that communication with Israel could be possible and they could attempt to placate the problems.